time is luxury, which is why Polestar spent so much time designing and refining every aspect of Polestar 3, their luxury electric performance SUV, so you can drive with up to 315 miles of range, so you can listen in 3D with up to 25 speakers and Bowers & Wilkins surround sound, and you can seamlessly stay connected with Google built in the entire time you're driving. All to make the time you spend behind the wheel of Polestar 3 the best time of your day. Book your test drive at Polestar.com.
This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first, call your parents to say, I'm sorry. And then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee for your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
It's time. Time to get in the zone. Time to get in the zone with the 49ers Web Zone. This is the No Huddle Podcast with Al and Brian.
What's up, faithful? You're listening to another episode of the 49ers Web Zone No Huddle Podcast, a part of the Audacy Network. I'm Brian Renick. He's Al Sacco. And joining us today is a man who needs no introduction, but we'll give him one anyway. You know him from the NFL Network. You know him from his Audacy original podcast, The Best Football Show. And you know him from the best breakdowns on Twitter. It's Brian Baldinger. Baldy, thank you so much for some time today.
Thanks. I'll just enjoy the shameless promotion right there. Thanks for having me, guys. Brian and Al, good to be with you. I mean, obviously that was a beatdown on Monday night. Couldn't really start it any better against a pretty quality team.
And believe me, we are chomping at the bit to ask you offensive line questions because we didn't think the Niners O-line would look anything like that in week 1, but it looked great. But I wanted to start out with a Purdy question for you. So Brock statistically had a pretty low-key game, 19 for 29, 231 yards, no TDs. When you look at the film, his PFF score was 89.6. He's 5th in the NFL in QBR. And on your breakdown, one of the things you wrote in Twitter was about his control and understanding of the offense. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw from Purdy in week 1?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously they ran the football really effectively. So, I mean, that was a big emphasis. It's a very talented secondary. I mean, Sauce and DJ, I mean, they know DJ. They drafted him. I mean, and it's talented. And so, and Brandon Ayuk didn't, play or practice throughout the entire offseason. So you just kind of are a little concerned about the timing right there. And Trent wasn't out there. So, what kind of conditioning would he have? So I don't think you can just cut it loose and just, bombs away. That's not what they do anyways. But I feel like they did a great job of in just all of their manipulation with their pre-snap motions and their shifts of really freezing a very talented linebacking core of C.J. Mosley and Quincy Williams. They're very good. There's Fred and that group in San Francisco, but they're right there. They're very good, and they look completely frozen. They didn't attack the line of scrimmage the way they normally do. I think they were a little unsure of themselves. And so, I mean, that's a lot of that is a quarterback. He doesn't have to wow you every game. The offense scored on 8 straight possessions. That's almost impossible to do in this league. 8 straight possessions they scored. Would you like a touchdown? I mean, they threw a touchdown to Ayuk. He got to catch it. But I thought he was under control. I thought they attacked the middle of the field. Those are layered throws in the middle of the field. They're not always easy. A lot of those throws with the quarterback before here used to get intercepted. He doesn't. I thought he had complete understanding of what they were trying to do.
Yeah, and Al touched on it. We're pretty excited to talk O-line with you because, all through this offseason, at least on this podcast, but, in 49er land and 49er fans in general, there was a real concern about the offensive line, the lack of taking a tackle early, which is something that fans wanted, and an upgrade at right tackle. But the 49ers drafted Dominick Puni in the 3rd round, who played tackle at Kansas. But when they drafted him, they said, we're looking at him at guard. And then Feliciano gets hurt in training camp, and Puni steps in, starts taking reps with the ones, and just hasn't really relinquished that. And he looked phenomenal on Monday night. Just absolutely looked like he'd been, in the league for 5 years. He's taken on double teams. He's throwing dudes to the ground. The question I have for you about Puni, outside of, what you thought of his play, which I've seen some of the breakdowns. I know you're high on him. My question is this: 49er fans are concerned about Colton McKivitz at right tackle, and there's also some concern about Jake Brendel at center. With Puni at right guard, and his play as consistent as it was in week 1 and as good as it was in week 1, does that kind of also elevate just the guys next to him as well? Like, is Puni's presence going to make this line a strength, even though they could use some upgrades at center and right tackle?
Absolutely. I mean, he's making everybody around him better. I mean, in fact, the Jets tested him on Monday night in one particular play, but more than just one. I mean, they put C.J. Mosley over your center. They had an end outside of McKivitz, and they put Quinnen Williams on him. And it was basically guaranteed a one-on-one. Now, Quinnen Williams wins most of his one-on-ones. I don't care who he goes against. Mm-hmm. He destroys every offensive lineman in Buffalo when he gets a one-on-one. And they did it, and Puni just stood tall, anchored down, and he got a little push on him, but he didn't beat him. In fact, I've watched every snap preseason on Monday night. He hasn't been beat yet. Doesn't have a bad snap yet. And so I did his breakdown on him. His head coach at Kansas reached out to me, and he just said, he appreciated the love and all that. But, he went to Kansas after being at a D2 school, and he's played up.
Right.
But he has an amazing ability. I mean, first of all, must be really smart. He takes really good angles in the run game when he gets to second level. He never seems surprised by anything, stunts, twists, blitzes. He never seems surprised by anything. Look, Javon Kinlaw is, you know what Kinlaw is at this point. He's solid. I mean, you know what all these guys are, the Jets who are out there. I mean, they're not great players. They're rotational players. He had no problem with any of them. He makes everybody around him better right now. And, the ball's either going to be run behind Trent or it's going to be behind Puni right now. That's where it's going. Aaron is a very solid left guard, very solid, especially playing next to Trent. They play very well together. I feel like they've upgraded the entire right side of the line with Puni.
Were you shocked Trent was as good as he was, considering he had about a week of practice, or did you just expect it's Trent Williams? I'm not surprised. He's
got techniques that only he does. They never leave you, his techniques. I mean, whether it's slapping guys' arms down or cutting off on the backside. I guess the question, he looked like he was pretty gassed at the end when he went out.
Yeah.
It's just going to be the conditioning level. And look, the old, cliche, fatigue makes cowards of us all. It's just true. I think he's got a warrior spirit, but, I just didn't know the volume of plays because they were on the field a long time. Yeah. And, the run, they took it to the Jets. They broke their sword. Mason finished these runs. I was just curious about just the conditioning level. But, obviously if he's hanging out there in Longview, Texas, he was doing more than bass fishing out there. Like he was doing some kind of work.
Mason had such a strong game, and I thought he was the story of the game. But we've seen over and over again how good it seems like almost any running back can be in this Kyle Shanahan system. When you're watching fifth game tape, Mason was incredible. What did you see from Mason, and what did you see from Kyle in terms of what he was dialing up play design wise to get Mason space?
Well, two things. One, he had 28 runs. He wasn't knocked backward once. So the guy has got a forward lean and he's got a finishing touch. Like he punishes defenders. You look at those Jets defenders in the fourth quarter versus the first quarter, like they weren't looking to get in his way in the fourth quarter. They just weren't. That's number one. Number two, honestly, I've stripped this thing down so many different ways, but Kyle runs 5 plays in the run game. Now, it looks different with a lot of motions and shifts and formations and all the stuff that they can do. They basically run 5 plays. They run an outside zone, an inside zone. They run a power. They run a wind back. They run a toss. It's basically 5 plays. And when you strip it all down, that's kind of what you're focusing on. But, those linebackers were frozen. Guys were getting out of their gaps. If you don't have perfect run fits, then they're going to make you pay. I just remember one game years ago, not that long ago, Ron Rivera was the head coach in Carolina. Luke Kuechly came to town, and they ran for about 230 against the Carolina Panthers. And I broke it down. Mm-hmm. There were 5 plays where Luke Kuechly was not blocked, and he wasn't anywhere near the play. I mean, that's Kyle. That's Kyle at his best. And I don't know if you guys get a chance to go out there to practice with Kyle, but it's not nice. It's not friendly. It's hard. He learned it from Alex. His dad learned it from Alex Gibbs. I know Alex Gibbs. It all comes from Alex. Like, that was a drill sergeant every day to make sure. And when you watch them play, how they chip the end with Kittle, and here comes Juice to clean up. I mean, you just freeze some of these runs halfway through it, and you realize they've got the perfect angle, the position. I mean, they're beating the defense at every single position, including the receivers. And if the fullback or tight ends are in.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this blocking scheme, and again, if we go back to the O-line, they're executing blocks that tend to be pretty difficult for a lot of offensive linemen, reach blocks, things of that nature. And when they drafted Puni, one of the things they talked about was, he didn't allow a pressure in his entire career in the NCAA, whether that be at Kansas or, like you said, he started at D2. But the question was going to be, where is he in the run game? And that was some of the struggles that other rookies have had coming in. I saw him execute at least 3 reach blocks where it's like teach tape. And I guess the question is, Chris Furster is the offensive line coach there. How difficult is it to teach that to players like Puni, rookies? Or do you feel like it's just, if you've got the athletic ability, and again, Puni had superior short area quickness drills at the combine. Him and Jarrett Kingston, I think, had 2 of the quickest 3 cones among offensive linemen. Is it more about athletic ability, or is there a lot of technique that he has just picked up quickly?
Now, he's a wide body. He takes up a lot of space. One thing I think they're going to do, I'm going to answer your question here, Brian, but the one thing I think you're going to see is, like, they've always been able to scheme runs. That's good. But now I think with Puni, they're actually able to displace the line of scrimmage, move guys off the ball. Like, you're going to see the way Trent can and Banks can on that side. That's why they're a very left-handed team. They move bodies. Kittle is obviously a great blocker. But I think with Puni at the point, against 3 techniques and maybe 1 techniques, and you talk about reach blocking and cutoff and all that stuff, cutoff blocks are as important as front side blocks. I think you're going to see maybe even a more power style of runs with him in there right now. He's better than Burford. He's better than Feliciano. Yeah. It's not even close. And I'm not to disparage those guys. It's a huge upgrade. If you're a 3 technique defensive tackle, you're in the 3 technique because you're not allowed to get hooked. That's right. It. Like, the play's got to come inside. Just by your initial stance, you can't get hooked. Like, I show a play like that to Warren Sapp and he pukes. He can't be normal in a conversation when he sees that. But that's maybe those drills at the combine transfer, but his first step quickness and the angles that he takes, he's not stepping in a bucket. He gets within a step. He's a very good athlete. He's never on the ground. It's impressive. It's impressive how he, gets to those angles like that.
Baldy, with the Niners, we're obviously thinking about getting back to the Super Bowl here and finishing the job. But I think the NFC is going to be tough this season. What teams besides the Niners, in terms of hierarchy, do you think are going to be there at the end? Who, other than them, do you think are maybe the best 2 or 3 other teams in the NFC?
Well, I mean, you've got to play this out. Teams are going to improve. I mean, Tampa's a good football team. They're going to play. Yeah. They play Detroit this week. It's going to be a great game. Detroit, the Rams was a great game. You watch Detroit in overtime. They went 70 yards in 8 plays, and 7 of them were runs. They ran the ball right down the Rams' throats. This Kevin Zeitler at right guard, he's as big and strong and smart as they come. And he's been doing it everywhere he goes for a dozen years. And you put him next to Penei Sewell, good luck. They're both good teams. The Rams are all beat up. They've got a backup to a backup to a backup at left tackle. at right tackle. They just lost, a really good left guard for a month. They're gonna be there. They're gonna answer the bell. The Eagles are a very talented team. We got to see what they look like defensively. But we got to see how some of these young guys develop. And that's with a lot of teams. Which young guys can Minnesota sustain what we saw them do with Sam Darnold? They played very good on the offense. Now they played the Giants, but their offense line, Darisaw, the group, they played very well up front. And Aaron Jones looks like Aaron Jones. And Brian Flores is as talented as anybody. You're going to see it this week. They're a very – I don't think the 49ers are going to have trouble, but they're a talented defense because of what they're capable of doing. But I think there's a lot of competition out there. Detroit, the Rams, Philadelphia. Dallas was so much faster than Cleveland. It wasn't even – you don't even have to know about football. You don't even have to know anything about football. Just watch the game and say which team is faster everywhere. And Dallas's defense was faster than Cleveland at every turn.
Do you feel like Mike Zimmer is an upgrade as a defensive coordinator in Dallas over Dan Quinn, or at least what Dan Quinn was running over the last couple of years there?
Well, under Dan Quinn, they led the entire National Football League in takeaways over 3 years. You give Kyle Shanahan the leader in takeaways, they're going to break records in scoring points. So, that stat is better than any other stat, leading the league in takeaways. That's a credit to Dan. Now, Mike coaches totally different than Dan. He coaches hard. He comes from the Bill Parcells school of coaching. Right. I don't believe he softened it all, but they played a rookie corner out there in Kalen Carson. He did a pretty good imitation of Deion Sanders out there last Sunday. He's a 5th-round pick out of Wake Forest, but meant that he played well against Cleveland.
Baldy, thanks so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the game this weekend. You owe those Vikings one now after what they did.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while in Minnesota. All right, Baldy, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Anytime.
Bye-bye.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Time is luxury, which is why Polestar spent so much time designing and refining every aspect of Polestar 3, their luxury electric performance SUV, so you can drive with up to 315 miles of range, so you can listen in 3D with up to 25 speakers and Bowers & Wilkins surround sound, and you can seamlessly stay connected with Google built in the entire time you're driving. All to make the time you spend behind the wheel of Polestar 3 the best time of your day. Book your test drive at Polestar.com.
Have you ever covered a carpet stain with a rug? Ignored a leaky faucet? Pretended your half-painted living room is supposed to look that way? Well, you're not alone. We've all got unfinished home projects. Whether it's a door that sticks, or a disorganized closet, or an AC unit that only works half the time. It all matters. You just haven't taken care of it yet. But there's an easier way. Just download the Thumbtack app. You can search for what you need done and find tons of highly rated pros right in your neighborhood. Check prices, reviews, and book a pro right on the spot. Plus, you'll know what to tackle next, because Thumbtack is the app that shows you what to do, who to hire, and when. Pull out your phone and in just a few taps, say goodbye to all those unfinished home projects and say hello to caring for your home the easier way. Download Thumbtack and start a project today.
All right, Brian.
Awesome.
The last time the Niners were won in Minnesota, do you know when it was?
Well, here's the thing: is I saw your tweet. I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but my favorite part about your tweet is, I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I don't remember. I believe it said 1992, but my favorite part of the tweet is you had an Amp Lee reference, and I was like, oh my god,
Amp
I have not
Lee.
thought of that name in decades. And I was like, oh,
it was
man,
Dude, it was his career game. Pro Football Reference. Love it. Anytime you need to look up anything, go to Pro Football Reference. But yeah, it was 1992, and Ricky Waters must have been hurt. I don't remember. I was in like 7th grade.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But he must have been hurt, and amply ran for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Niners won 20-17. Steve Young had a pretty pedestrian day, about 186 yards. Jerry Rice, 5 catches, 56 yards. They pulled the game out, the Niners did. They have not won in Minnesota since.
That's wild.
And you think there's some upsets. The Harbaugh years, it was 2012. It was like week 2 or 3. It was early in the season. They came in and just laid an egg. That was a game you thought they were going to win easily. Last year was another game. Kind of a fluky game. They didn't have Trent Williams. They didn't have Deebo Samuel. It was the Steve Wilkes game where they gave up that long touchdown pass at the end of the half.
Cover zero.
And Purdy probably had a concussion at the end of the game, where 100%. He dived into the line and got his head hit, and then he threw a couple picks after. I'm pretty sure he was seeing double at that point. So a little bit fluky last year. But listen, all trends are meant to be broken. And I really feel like this week the trend is going to get broken. Sam Darnold is a turnover machine. I think Purdy's going to have a good game. I'll talk about some reasons why in a little bit. But it was 1992. I think now 2024, another victory.
Yeah, Nick Bosa said today, and some people were like, "Oh, he's throwing shade at the Jets," but basically he said, "I think we're playing a better opponent this week," and I think all he meant was that the Vikings are playing better football than the Jets did against the 49ers. But let's also take that with a grain of salt. They did play the New York Giants, who may have one of the worst defenses in the NFL when it's all said and done. We shall see. And then their offense is just putrid. Daniel Jones is just absolutely stealing money from the New York Giants at this point. But then you also, kudos to Daniel Jones. They're the ones that paid him. So who do you blame there? But, this game I think is interesting because we think it's just been a year, right? Almost to the day, right? I think it was week 3 last year that they went to Minnesota. It's week 2 this year. That game, like you said, it was fluky, but the other thing is Kirk Cousins threw for 378 yards, something like that. It was a lot. It was ridiculous.
He played out of his mind.
He played out of his mind.
He was great.
Is there any world where anybody believes that Sam Darnold can throw for 378 yards, or let's just say 300 yards against the defense that we saw on Monday night against the Jets? My answer to that is no. There's just
week 1 is a mirage.
There's no world where that. Yeah. But I don't think that 49ers defensive performance was a mirage in the slightest. I think that was just a vintage performance. And there was so much that I took away from that game, including Nick Sorensen. And I said earlier this week on Twitter, I tweeted out that one of my favorite takeaways was how quickly Sorensen adjusted after that first Jets touchdown drive. And Jose Sanchez, who covers the team for Sports Illustrated with Grant Cohn over there, tweeted that it was very similar to what Robert Saleh was doing, especially towards the end there, where he'd come out early in a game with some pretty vanilla coverages and defenses just to try and get a feel for what the offense wants to do. And then once they got that idea, then they started, making adjustments and again, mid-game adjustments, not halftime adjustments, right? Not next week adjustments, but immediate adjustments. And that was the biggest takeaway that I had. And I expect more of the same. This Vikings defense may give the 49ers offense trouble. Just because Brian Flores, throws a lot at a quarterback. And I'm very interested to see Brock Purdy's performance in this game. Even though likely he won't have CMC, he's going to have Trent Williams. He's going to have his full complement of weapons. I'm interested to see how much different he plays than he did last year.
Well, I thought it was interesting. So last year in week 1, Purdy was 19 for 29 for 222 yards, and he threw 2 touchdown passes. This year in week 1, he was 19 for 29, 231 yards. Wow. He didn't have a TD pass, but he should have.
He should have.
I should have caught it. And Purdy actually started out pretty slow. He had 5 TD passes in his first 4 games last season, and then he threw 26 over the next 12. So he did kind of, he wasn't super prolific early. Mm-hmm. He's also been the most efficient QB in the NFL against zone coverage. And I saw a stat where Minnesota ranked third in zone coverage rate. Now, I think he's going to come after Purdy a little bit. He did last year. But like you said, Purdy's got his weapons. in this Niners team, I guess I don't know if I would say I was surprised. I'm more glad to see in week one is how they use their complement of weapons everywhere. So they're the only NFL team in the Super Bowl era to get a 200-yard passing game, a 125-yard rushing game, and a 50-yard receiving game, and an interception from 4 players who were drafted 200th or later or weren't drafted at all. And those 4 players are Purdy, Mason, Jennings, and Flanagan Fowles, which is pretty incredible. Jordan Mason's 147 yards rushing was the 8th highest total in week one since 2014. So when you look at the fact that Trent's still working his way back into shape, that Ayuk, to me, didn't look like anything like Ayuk in that game. Mm-hmm. As those guys work their way back in, get another week under, practice and their conditioning under their belt, I feel like Purdy's going to have a good game. I feel like this offense is going to have a good game. They'll capitalize on turnovers. And I mean, I never want to say a blowout because I don't want to jinx anything, but sure. I feel as much as Minnesota has been a house of horrors, I feel very confident going into this game, especially with the offense.
Yeah. Again, I said it, on Monday night. That game on Monday night was just a big exhale moment for me, right? Where it was, we had so many questions, and with everything that went on, like with Trent's holdout, with Brandon Ayuk's holdout, with, the news that CMC, wasn't going to play, had questions about the run defense, Aaron Rodgers is going to be back. Garrett Wilson is a beast. Like, there were just so many question marks going into that game. The Jets defense is really good. They've got a phenomenal secondary, all of those things. And you watch that game, and like I said, it was just like, okay, this team looks like what it should look like with the talent that it has against a team that is going to fight for a playoff spot in the AFC, which is loaded, right? And
they were the bully in that game.
Yeah. And is probably going to, the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Bills are going to beat each other up in the, in the NFC or the AFC East. So, with that relief, that exhale, I feel like I can just kind of step back and again, just look at this team and go, for as many questions as we had, right? Purdy is there, Williams is back, Ayuk is there, Debo's there, Kittle's there, Dominick Puni looked incredible. It seems like that's a massive upgrade at right guard. Somebody in the chat said that we need to pump the brakes on the, on the Puni praise. But again, I think, people with a lot more knowledge than I have, and people who have played the position at the highest level, have some pretty impressive things to say about Dominick Puni, which I'm going to take and say that's an, for a week one rookie, that's going to be, an impressive performance. So I just have a lot of confidence. I don't want to say I lacked confidence in this team prior to week one. I just had a lot of questions.
Marks.
Yeah, I had a lot of questions. But I feel like a lot of those questions were answered. And again, it is week one. We can't be too, we can't be too effusive in saying like, well, week one shows that, they're going to steamroll the league. But I do think it showed that they are still a dominant force to be reckoned with. And I feel like there are few teams that really stack up with the 49ers, and the Minnesota Vikings are not one of them.
Before we go to the other side of the ball, McCaffrey was on the practice field today. I believe they were non-padded practice today.
Non-padded,
he was doing drills or whatever. I am going to be shocked if they play him on the turf. If he's got this Achilles stuff going on, I'll be shocked if he plays in the next 2 weeks because they're on turf the next 2 weeks. I think it's going to be a little bit. It's still a scary situation. I'm sure they do not want him out there, and he steps the wrong way. And then, I didn't want to say it. Right. So I think you're going to see a lot of Jordan Mason again, not only this week, but for the next week. And then we'll see where we are in week 4-ish. Now, 2 matchups I want to look at on the 49ers defense. I saw a stat today last year when the Vikings and the Niners played. This is according to Vikings fan page on Twitter, but let's assume this information is accurate.
Sure.
Nick Bosa won 1 of 15 reps against Christian Darrisaw, 6.7% win rate. And that's according to PFF. So I guess it is accurate. Bosa, I don't think was Bosa last year at that point. He even said he was working his way back. So where did they play? It was week 7, maybe week 6, week 7. It was before the bye. I don't think Bosa was himself until after the bye in the Jacksonville game. So
That's
that
right. It
first
was
half
after
of
the Cleveland
season
game. It wasn't early in the
season.
season.
It was sandwiched in between the Cleveland game and the Cincy game. So they were 5-0. They had that 3-game losing streak. It was sandwiched in those 3 games. Bosa was not himself, I don't think, until after the bye. So I'm really interested to see that matchup because I didn't realize that. I want to see how Bosa responds. The other matchup I'm very interested to see, I assume Charvarius Ward may see some snaps on Justin Jefferson. The Jets wanted no part of Charvarius Ward last week. He had 5 targets at him. He allowed 14 yards. He had a pass breakup of 47.9, passer rating when targeted. So he has been playing like a top 5 corner in the league. I'm really interested to see if he can shut one side of the field down again like he did in week 1.
Yeah, he played 51 of his 56, I believe, 51 of his 56 snaps at left cornerback. And when Rodgers was in the game, he targeted that side of the field 3 times. Wow. That was it.
That's crazy.
To the point where, people made it a meme. Somebody from
I saw that.
With the eye patch, like he couldn't see that side of the field. And he couldn't see that side of the field because Mooney Ward just eclipsed him. Yeah, that's the thing. Kirk Cousins did what he did last year. Jordan Jefferson was not on the field for the Vikings. Jordan Addison was. And Jordan Addison had a huge game. Now, Jordan Addison won't be on the field for the Vikings, but Jefferson will. And I just feel like the 49ers are set up in a way where just very similar to Garrett Wilson, right? Where Garrett Wilson had a massive game in one drive, right? The touchdown, their first touchdown drive that the Jets had, Garrett Wilson was a big part of that, with some, a couple long completions and then a couple big third down conversions. And then after that, we didn't really hear from Garrett Wilson again. And again, we're talking about adjustments that Sorensen and Staley made, and they were, lights out. I have a feeling that we're going to see something similar where the 49ers are just going to say, look, we're not going to let Jefferson beat us. If you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us with the other guys that you have. And, with a guy like Sam Darnold, I don't know that he can beat, a team as talented as the 49ers if he's targeting guys that, aren't Jefferson and Addison and they still don't have their is the tight end back?
Hawkinson? No.
Hawkinson?
No.
Yeah. So yeah.
No,
so so I just don't think they have the weapons. Aaron Jones is good.
I'm a big Aaron Jones guy, but yeah, no, I hear you.
And I really like Aaron Jones. I thought it was surprising to me that the Packers, let him go in favor of Josh Jacobs. I feel like Jones offers more in the passing game than Jacobs does, but Jacobs is younger, so I think that's just part of the calculus there. But yeah, I just don't. I think this defense is too talented to, like I said, to lose to a Sam Darnold. Regardless of what Darnold looked like last week.
Well, the funny thing is when you look at last year's game, Kirk Cousins played amazing, I thought. He was 35 of 45. He threw for 378 yards. Obviously, the one play at the end of the half that was a disaster that should have never happened. But he played out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the final score was? 22-17.
Right.
Barely won the game with Kirk Cousins playing out of his mind. And I understand Jefferson wasn't there, but they got a lucky touchdown. The quarterback played, and Kirk Cousins is a established quarterback, Pro Bowl type quarterback. That was one of the better games I'd seen him play. I thought he was like phenomenal in that game.
Yeah, he was.
And
amazing.
They still needed a fluky touchdown and barely won. That's kind of the way. Now you insert Sam Darnold into there. Who, listen, anything can happen any given Sunday, but I highly doubt he's going to play that level of a game on Sunday. And you get a Niners defense that looked good up a lot better than we thought it would, that played the run a lot better than we thought it would, in an offense that's going to be more whole. Even if McCaffrey isn't there, this is still an offense that the Jets are expected to be one of the better defenses in the league. It's still an offense that scored on 8 freaking possessions last week, in week 1. So in this game, even if Flores throws some stuff, even if there's some mistakes, the Niners, I don't think are going to be stuck at 17 points again. They're going to be in the high 20s here, and I don't think the Vikings can get there.
Yeah, I realized I was saying earlier, I kept calling him Justin Jefferson. My apologies.
You did, but they know what you're talking about. The people
Justin Jefferson. Again, the Vikings put it on the Giants last week. Their offense played pretty fantastic. Justin Jefferson had 4 receptions for 59 yards and 1 touchdown. And again, they went against a really shitty New York Giants defense.
Yeah, Giants are atrocious.
Which again just goes to show you, as a defense, if you can focus your attention on taking away one player, right? Bill Belichick, famous for this, right? We're going to take away your best player and make you beat us with, the guys that aren't. You can still shut down someone even as talented as Justin Jefferson. Again, still got a touchdown, but 4 receptions, 59 yards, nothing to write home about. Justin Jefferson's going to get his, right? It's just a matter of, can you limit, like the Giants did last week, can you limit the damage? And, you look at the way that this defense performed on Monday night and you think, yeah, they're definitely up to the task. I am interested. Christian Darrisaw is probably one of the better left tackles in the NFL, like you said. And so I am very interested in that Bosa-Darrisaw matchup. And I'm also interested to see if, because of what happened last year, if we don't see some flip-flopping from Bosa and Floyd, where, they're switching sides and trying to take advantage of, the Vikings right side of the line.
Did you see Floyd's PFF grade? Did you catch that? So I don't put a ton of stock in PFF grades, but I do look at them. I thought Floyd played great Monday night. I thought he really flashed, and I thought he made a big difference. His grade was like a 47 or some shit. It was terrible. That's when I look at those things and I'm like, I don't know that I can take.
We watched a different game.
Seriously. Yeah. Right. What? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Continue.
And I'll be interested to see if Yetur Gross-Matos is back. He was back at practice. That's another guy that they're going to count on, especially when defending the run. And against Kevin O'Connell, who is, a disciple of essentially the Kyle Shanahan system, right? It comes from LA under Sean McVay. He looks to run the ball. And so they're going to have to, the Jets wanted to run the ball as well, but Nathaniel Hackett is their play caller and play designer. And I just don't think that there's a lot there. Kevin O'Connell is definitely a step above Nathaniel Hackett when it comes to things like that. So again, still concerned about the run defense. It looked great on Monday night. I will be interested to see how it looks again against a team with another really good running back.
What's better than watching your team win? Winning money while you do it. I'm Jim Costa, and on Cash the Ticket, Mike Valenti and I give you the edge to make every game playable. College football, NFL, we're breaking it all down game by game. Your podcast feed is going to be filled, and you're going to love it. You can click on the games you care about. We do it all. With our analysis, we're finding games that other people aren't talking about. We're turning every Saturday and every Sunday into days where you got a chance to win. Don't just sit on the sidelines. Cash the Ticket with us. Follow Cash the Ticket in the free Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Brian, predictions. I think the Niners are going to win this game pretty easily. I'm going to say, I said high 20s, but I'm going to go 31-17-ish.
This is unbelievable, Al. This is 2 weeks in a row. I was literally in my head. I was like 31-17. I'm just waiting for Al to give his. 31-17 was gonna be mine.
All right, you get to give the score first next week.
Okay, perfect.
And
it'll probably do the same thing. I'll say it, and you'll be like, "Damn, that was mine."
Listen, we're on the same wavelength, man. We understand this team.
Listen, Jake Moody coming back near Michigan, right? Coming off NFC Special Teams Player of the Week.
Let's give him
3 more. Let's give him three more field goals, and I'll give him 3 touchdowns. So I'll say 30, and then I'm hard pressed to think that Sam Darnold is going to put up.
The
same. I will give them. I'll say 30-16 is my final score. 30-16.
Yeah, I think it's going to be around there. If you're going to draft a kicker in the 3rd round, at least he has 6 field goals in week 1. So that works. All right, before we get out of here, I want to say Brock Purdy is the brand ambassador of Ariat. And I'm holding up get it better here on YouTube, the hat. Ariat. Check out Ariat. That is www.ariat, ariat.com. Check out their styles. We have a link in the description for YouTube. And again, Brock Purdy is their brand ambassador. So check that out. Brian and I will be back after this game, Sunday, Monday, one of those days, break it all down. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody.
Later.
Niners on 3. 1, 2, 3.
.2400 Sports is an Audacy company.